It essentially brought these civilizations together into great cultural and material exchange, and really was the beginning of the trend towards globalization.
It is a key to understanding how our world works to this day. Just like the first civilizations, we trade and form networks. These networks form hubs. And throughout history, being at that hub has meant one thing.
The amount of ideas, the amount of cargo that passes through a region seems to have a direct correlation to how powerful and important they are.
By 2000 BC, humans have gone from humble huts to massive monuments. In Africa, great pyramids arise on the banks of the Nile. The first stages of Stonehenge rise up in ancient Britain. And back in Samaria, artificial temple mounds called ziggurats climb ever higher toward the heavens. To cement these massive structures together, the builders of Samaria turned to a substance that oozes from seepages along the Euphrates River. It's called bitumen. Used as asphalt in the modern world, it is the first petroleum product to be exploited by mankind. While bitumen is highly prized, the lighter, thinner substance oozing from the ground along with it is considered a nuisance by the ancients because it catches fire so easily. The ancients call it naphtha. We call it gasoline. And it's one of the first indications of the vast oil fields that will one day turn the cradle of civilization into a center of wealth and warfare. The legacy of these first civilizations can be seen in surprising ways. The Sumerian counting system was based on the number 12 rather than 10, which is why we divide our days into two 12-hour blocks, our hours into 60 minutes, and our minutes into 60 seconds. The Sumerians also likely invented the wheel, which eventually leads to another innovation that will change the course of man, the chariot.
Thus bringing together the Sumerian invention of the wheel, right, with the domestication of the horse that had occurred amongst these nomadic peoples into this really formidable piece of military technology.
Around 1200 BC, a chariot-driven clash of civilizations cuts off trade routes for copper and tin, the metals we need to make bronze tools and weapons. But luckily, the stars have made us an alternative: iron. Now, metalsmiths make a crucial discovery. By working at higher temperatures, they can release the power of this ancient metal. Easier to sharpen and 700 times more common on Earth than copper. It is a game changer. Humanity enters the Iron Age. As we reach the first millennium BC, history has taken us on a wild ride. From the initial blast of the Big Bang, to the formation of Earth and its first creatures, and the rise of man. We've seen the Ice Age create bridges to spread mankind around the world, then strand us on different continents, leaving us to survive on what we have at hand. So by 1000 BC, the world remains a divided place. The trade network that connects much of Eurasia and North Africa doesn't yet penetrate the planet's driest deserts or cross the vastest oceans. Cut off by geography are people in places like sub-Saharan Africa and the Americas. With few easy-to-domesticate plants and animals of their own, they remain tied to more ancient ways of life. In 600 BC, the cavalry have arrived. Humans ride into battle on horseback for the first time. We've seen that just taming a horse gives man a massive advantage. Now, pairing him with iron weapons makes him nearly unstoppable.
These advances in technology, they don't just make a fighting ability possible. They make empires possible.
And that is the story of the next several millennia. With new technology and improved logistics, empires spread, uniting massive land areas under a central control. As empires grow, so do new beliefs.
One interesting phenomenon we see with the rise of these empires is this idea of monotheism, this idea of a universal God that develops over time, and it's just a phenomenon.
Judaism emerges, from which we eventually get Christianity and Islam. Buddhism and Hinduism also arise. The 5 major religions today are all rooted in this remarkable era. Although empires spread, some great powers remain isolated. The rise of the Himalayas 50 million years earlier has left China cut off from trading with the rest of the world. But that is about to change. Around 100 BC, a Chinese emperor sends an envoy to the west in search of alliances. The routes he travels will become the Silk Roads, a massive trade network that connects China across Central Asia to the Roman Empire. China has joined the world.
As far as we know, no Chinese trader ever met a Roman, no Roman ever met a Chinese trader, at least during this first period of the Silk Roads. But this vast trade then began to explode. Between about 100 BC and about 200 AD, we have 3 centuries of trade and cultural exchange on a level that has not been seen before in human history.
But this new human network also unleashes hidden dangers. By the beginning of the Common Era, great empires have risen and a massive trading network connects most of Europe and Asia. But the trade routes also carry an invisible threat. Disease. Massive epidemics that some blame for taking down both the Roman Empire and China's Han Dynasty. But these networks also lead to the spread of religion. In 312 AD, the Roman Emperor Constantine converts to Christianity, paving the way for it to become the dominant religion of Europe and the West. Three centuries later, Islam also emerges. A religion that will, for a time, unify a territory 2.5 times larger than Rome ever was. Arab trade will drive innovation for the next 1,000 years and expand the global network to places it has never gone before.
The Arabs are sitting in the middle of Afro-Eurasia. There are Arab traders who are sailing off to China. There are Arab traders who are traveling all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. So they are sitting in the middle of the hub.
One secret to Arab trade: the camel. A creature whose ancestor, like the horse, escaped across the Bering Land Bridge out of North America. A caravan of 6 camels can lug as much as 2 tons of cargo as far as 60 miles a day, twice the load of a donkey caravan in half the time. For the first time, Camel caravans open up reliable trade routes across the formidable Sahara Desert, leading to the formation of the first states in West Africa. Arabic trade expands, moving salt from the Sahara to Rome, rice from Eastern Asia to India, the secrets of making paper out of China into Europe, and countless other inventions and ideas around the world.
Where does our word for lemon come from? Where does our word for coffee come from? They're all Arabic, because the Arabs brought a huge number of food crops into Europe. Oranges, citrus crops, they come from South China. Yet they don't make it to the West until the Great Age of the Arabs.
In Islamic North Africa, one Italian merchant named Leonardo Fibonacci becomes well-schooled in the ways of Arab traders. He picks up on a simple but ingenious counting system that originated in India but is used extensively in the Arab world. His writings will spread this knowledge to Europe and around the globe. With everyone counting the same way, business and trade will explode. And because of Fibonacci, people today still almost universally use the numbers known as Arabic numerals. But there is another idea Arab traders will spread, something even more influential. It originates in China around 800 AD. A Chinese alchemist in search of an elixir for long life instead stumbles upon chemistry that can bring sudden death. He combines carbon and sulfur with saltpeter, a compound made of potassium, nitrogen, and oxygen. Forged in the stars, these elements now come together to make gunpowder. The recipe for gunpowder eventually moves west across the Silk Roads to the Islamic world, where Muslim warriors use it to fire cannonballs at Christian crusaders. Europeans pick up on the idea, embracing and perfecting gunpowder weapons. (1492 AD). There are roughly 400 million people in the world, but it is still divided in two. In the Americas, the civilizations of the Aztecs, Mayans, and Incas have all arisen. While halfway around the world, in the aftermath of the fall of Rome, Europe has cracked like an egg into individual states. For Italian-born Christopher Columbus, this means he can appeal for funding from a succession of European rulers, until he finally convinces the King and Queen of Spain to back his expeditions. It has taken all of Earth's history to make Columbus's journey possible. For tacking into the wind, he uses triangular sails, a technology copied from the Arabs. To guide him, the compass, an invention from China. And guiding the needle, a magnetic field formed with the core of the planet itself. Although Columbus is looking for a new way to sail to India, what he does instead is finally and forever connect the two halves of the world. The voyage is not just significant in American history. As you'll see, it's a pivotal event in all of human history. Nothing will ever be the same. The end of the Ice Age marooned large pockets of humanity on separate sides of the globe for over 15,000 years. Now, that's all about to change.
The voyage of Christopher Columbus in 1492 is taught as one of the most significant events in American history. In fact, it's one of the most significant events in all of human history. Prior to that voyage, the Great World Zones had existed largely in isolation. By crossing the Atlantic, Columbus opens up the vast American world zone, these two enormous